This is the new S54 Sedan. It's a 1987 BMW E30 325i sedan. Alpine white on beige interior with the automatic transmission. This is a completely stock E30. It has been untouched. Even the paint is all stock, all the way from 1987. And as you can tell, this car has been sitting for quite a while. Selena actually purchased this car before we even started the YouTube channel. We're not even sure how long it was sitting before we purchased it, but we do know that it was sitting because it had a bad torque converter. When we bought the car, we knew that we were eventually going to build it, so we really never messed with it. And then we actually moved to California. So the car stayed back in the Carolinas this whole time. It's always just been sitting. Nobody's really done anything to it. Nobody's touched it. It's so dirty that it's not really even Alpine white anymore. And on top of that, it is home to so many different critters, a lot of wasps. There's a lot of beehives and wasp nests all around this car. So that's what we're gonna do first. We're gonna try to clean it up and get rid of all that stuff, hopefully without getting stung. You're probably gonna see me squirming around all around while I'm washing, and that's mainly because I'm allergic to these bees and wasps. I swell up. So let's try to get this stuff cleaned up and then pull it right into the shop. Let's see if it turns on. So this is the original gas that's been in here for who knows how long. Yes, sir. Headlights work too? All right, let's try to get her in there. The brakes did feel a little mushy, so let's see. Hopefully there's no wasp in here. We already took out so many wasp nests while cleaning it up. So here is the new S54 Sedan. We went from an Alpine white E46 to an Alpine white E30. I guess you can say we have a thing for Alpine white. We bought it back in Raleigh, North Carolina for a mere 750 bucks. Granted, that was 5+ years ago. It's kind of hard to find these kind of deals now. And when we bought it, you know, our original plans were to build an E30 back then, but then we decided to move to California. And that's not where the story ends, because in California, Selena actually wanted to build an E30 Coupe. And we started the whole build on Selena's channel, but once we started stripping the whole car, we realized it had frame damage. So we decided to just scrap it, and then life happened. We moved back to the Carolinas, and once again, we were reunited with our E30 Sedan. And this one used to be rust-free 5+ years ago, but like I said, we really haven't done much. This is the first time we even cleaned it, and we're finally gonna put it up on the lift and check the car out once and for all. So that's the main thing I really wanted to do before we do any kind of build process, is to make sure that this chassis is good. So let's just get it up on the lift and check it out. So usually when I check out a car, I start out in the engine bay, and I wanna look through the engine components and all that. But as you guys know, it's getting an S54, so all that's pointless. The main thing that we're really looking at in this car is the chassis. Want to make sure there have been no bad repairs, and make sure, you know, if there's nothing else, no other surprises, and hopefully we don't get bit by anything or stung by anything. One of the main spots on E30s that are always rust prone is the battery tray area. And it's usually because water just collects over here, and sometimes those seals go bad, and there's the wasp nest right there that we were seeing. It's all right in there. But yeah, as I was saying, so battery tray rust all the time. So yeah, you can see the rust right here starting in this battery tray area. And that's just from water just sitting there, and the battery rests right on top of this plastic tray. But that's a pretty easy patch, and this is nowhere near as bad as a lot of the ones that I have seen on the East Coast. And I actually already see some surface rust that's forming in between these pinch welds, but that's not that big of a deal. We can seam seal it, you know, clear it out and then seam seal it. And it's usually because just water collects over there. Sometimes those trunk seals get clogged up with all kinds of dirt, especially when it's sitting for 5+ years. You're gonna have dirt. I mean, there's still dirt in all of the door jambs and everything. Every time water goes through it with the pressure washer, more dirt comes out. But we just want to do the preliminary wash, get all those wasp nests out of here, and then bring it up here to see how everything else looks. Now, we can see this exhaust is just hanging here. All the mounts are broken off. Just the rubber section just, you know, corrodes over time and just breaks off. So all that stuff is busted. Even this heat shield for the exhaust is all rusty right here. And wherever somebody did a previous exhaust repair, that part also rusted out. I'm pretty sure they actually hooked it up onto this. So there was probably a bolt that was hooked up onto that section, which is why that's also rusty. So one thing that we know for sure, all of the rubber is gone, which obviously we're gonna replace it anyways, but you know, if we were to even try to get it to roadworthy condition, yeah, this is gonna take a lot of work before we even start the build. Now, as we're going down, this is the main issue with the car, is the torque converter that's in here is seized up. So, I mean, you can even hear it. Honestly, like, can you think of any other car that's been sitting for that long, 5+ years, and who knows how long it was sitting before that, with the same old gas, nobody's filled it up or anything, and the gas tank shows as completely empty. And it literally turned on. Like, just put a battery in and it turned on. What other cars are gonna do that? I mean, it still boggles my mind. And honestly, I really think I could probably drive this really if I wanted to on the street. If that torque converter, if I could trust it a little bit, I would drive it, but it's already making so much noise, so I don't wanna risk it, you know, and have to pay for a tow. As I'm looking at this car though, it is so dirty. I mean, this is 35 years of grime over this entire car. There's not that much rust. I mean, I see right here on the floor, there's some rust starting to happen right here. You can see right there, that's easy to patch. Even that one's easy to patch. All these are not that big of a deal. Usually when these frame rails start rusting, that's when we have some issues. But all that looks good. We do have some rust right here as well from when somebody jacked it up from right there. Which, guys, on E30s, you really never want to use these jack points. They're just not gonna hold up. Usually want to put it right on the frame. And then on the back, I have it on the pinch weld right now because this one actually looks pretty solid, but you usually want to put it right here. You can put it on the trailing arm section. And I probably should have done that, honestly, but I wanted to see the condition of all this, so I didn't. And I mean, I just want to make sure none of this stuff is rusted out, especially all these sections where everything mounts. I mean, there is a little bit of rust right here as well, where the undercoating started going off. All right, now let's look at the front frame rails. That's the main thing. Make sure it hasn't been hit before. So on our E30 Coupe that we had started on Selena's channel, this whole frame rail section was kinked. I mean, it was a pretty bad kink, and you know, we could have tubed the whole front, but just knowing that it was tweaked before, we didn't want to risk it and, you know, spend all that time and money into that chassis. And honestly, we're not really big fans of coupes. We love sedans. I know E30 coupes, in most people's opinions, look better than E30 sedans.
I think so too, but
Selena agrees.
But we're gonna make this look good, okay?
Yeah, and I mean, for us, it's like, you know, we have all of our dogs. We don't have any kids yet, but we have 2 dogs, and we like to take them everywhere, right? Open the door, the back door, let the dogs jump in. That's the best way to do it. And that's why you get a sedan. And sedans are cheaper. And they look better, they're more practical, everything. There's so many more positives for a sedan. What's a coupe got going for it?
Looks better, lighter.
It's not lighter.
Long. No, that's the same length, right?
Yeah, it's almost the same exact weight.
Oh.
And in some chassis, sedans are actually their chassis is more rigid than coupes. For example, the E46. Okay, but let's look at these frame rails. So far, and this battery's dead. One thing I really don't like is you see how this water piles up with these control arm sections? And that's where it starts rusting really bad. And that's mainly because I started washing the whole engine bay and all that, trying to get as much of the crud off as I could. Now let's look at this front radiator support area. So this whole valance section is actually torn off and then rusted out as well. It's also bent. You know, we're probably gonna do what everybody does with their E30, get rid of all of these diving boards. I don't think they're called, are they called diving boards? I think they're called diving boards, but getting rid of the front and rear bumpers, putting the whole M-Tech kit on it. I know Garagistic makes a bunch of repops for all the whole M-Tech conversion, front, rear, side skirts and everything. Not side skirts, front, rear, and the spoiler and all that. So I think we might just end up going with the Garagistic parts. They also have a lot of stuff for the E30. They've got their whole, I think, half cage for the back, but I don't know if it's made for sedan. That's another downside for sedans. Everybody makes stuff for coupes, but sedans not as much, but we'll see. And then also, we want to get all of the chassis stiffening stuff from Garagistic. I know they make all of that stuff. So we'll see how that goes. Now, I know I told you guys in the last video, the whole purpose of me swapping the S54 into here is so I can learn, right? So S54s are put into E30s all the time. And the easiest way is you change the oil pan on the S54 to, I believe it's the M50, the front sump oil pans, and then I think off the E34, and then you modify the oil pickup tube and all of that. But the S54 has a rear sump for a specific reason. You know, when you're actually driving it hard, we don't want any oil starvation issues. So I want to keep the S54 in its stock form. Stock oil pan, do not modify it at all. Now there's a couple of companies out there that make full kits that replace the whole subframe with like a tubular subframe, and you can just bolt it in. Their lead times are around 12 to 16 weeks. And on top of that, it costs around $3,000 or more. So I want to learn, you know, how to do more fabrication stuff. So we're going to fabricate our own custom subframe. That's the plan for right now. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, if it does not work out, if I, you know, all the tools and stuff, if it does not work out, we always have the backup. We can pay the $3,000 and get it made by somebody else. But yeah, you know, the whole goal here is we're going to try to do as much stuff as we can on our own and go from there. But yeah, besides that, I mean, the chassis is fine. I think this is a perfect candidate. It's Alpine white. Can't go wrong with that. And it is a clean title. So it's all the boxes are checked so far. So I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. The reason that we're even doing the S54 swap into this E30 is because we already have the E30 and we already have the S54 that's coming out of my first car, the E46 Sedan. And my whole goal is I really want to stay true to myself and my first car and go crazy with that build. But all the stuff that I have on my wish list, it comes with a pretty crazy price up front. And my whole goal is, as I'm building this E30, you know, making all this content, with you guys' encouragement and support, I'll be able to save up enough money to, you know, fund that whole build. And that will also be a whole learning experience for me. So it's gonna just be a whole lot of learning, and obviously I'm gonna be passing all that learning, all the stuff that I learned onto you guys through all of this content. And also make it a little bit entertaining with this whole E30 build. I'm super excited, and I'm also excited to save up and start on my first car. And hopefully I'm able to get all the stuff that I have on my wish list. But we'll see how that goes. But as we're here in the interior of this E30, I'm so surprised on how well this interior has fared. It's been out in the sun the entire time that we've owned it. So 5+ years just out in the elements. There's only one crack on the dash right up here. The steering wheel's all torn up, but that's okay. The seats are still really, really soft. Like, I'm actually more comfortable in here than my first car. My seats are hard. These are actually super soft. And even all of the, you know, the trim and everything in here is looking really good. The door panels are better than the E36's door panels. The E36's door panels are all completely torn up, but these are actually still holding up fine. Even the headliner's not sagging. But yeah, everything looks pretty good. But, you know, with the S54, we're gonna need some seats to hold us in because we're gonna have some fun in it. So we'll see how that goes. We'll figure out a solution for that. There's a lot of stuff that we're still going to figure out in terms of what our funds allow. And hopefully any companies that want to join on board with this whole build, obviously that's always welcoming, and we'll be able to use some parts from them if we are able to get any sponsors and showcase their products. But all that stuff goes on the back burner first. What we really need to do is get all this stuff stripped out and start on placing that S54 in here. Let's just open the hood for shits and giggles. So what we have here is BMW's own paperweight. It's the M20. A lot of people are probably not going to like that. But the M20 is just, it's really gutless, honestly, especially behind automatic. Once you put a manual transmission, it actually does wake it up quite a bit. If you guys saw one of our previous videos, the 325 IS that we did the manual conversion on, that one I drove around to break the clutch in, and it actually feels surprisingly like almost like an E46 325, 323, honestly. Is actually, you know, peppy with the manual transmission. We're not really worried about any of this. You know, we're gonna yank all this stuff out. The S54 is a perfect power plant for the E30. Everything just is exactly where you would want it. It's gonna be super fast, super reliable, even with keeping the S54 completely stock. And I mean, we'll be able to make that fit, and it's a BMW engine in the BMW car. It's gonna look great. Now, there are a couple of other challenges with the S54. Like I mentioned before, with the whole front subframe, S54 is rear sump. The E30s all came with front sump engines. When I'm referring to front sump and rear sump, I'm talking about the oil pan. So the sump is that whole big section of the oil pan that usually hangs down, and that's the lowest point in the oil pan where you open up the drain plug. So front sump on the E30s is the front of the engine has that whole section of the oil pan. And on the E46s, so the S54, they're all rear sump. Even the E36s are rear sump, which is why the S54 into the E36 would actually make very good sense, because everything should bolt right up. Just got to change the engine mount arms and it'll work perfectly. But once again, that does not give me that learning opportunity that I want with the whole fabrication side of things, which is why we're doing it in the E30 as well. The other issue is the S54 intake manifold or intake plenum will not fit with the brake booster on the E30. So we're gonna have to figure out, a different brake booster setup for that, or we can also go boosterless. Now the wiring and stuff, all that's pretty straightforward. The S54 is very easy to make standalone, so that's not gonna be an issue at all. Cooling system stuff, there's all kinds of tried and true methods that we can use for that. The only other thing I really wanna do is more cosmetic stuff to the E30 to make it look a little bit more aggressive. All of the builds that we've done so far, all of our personal builds, have all been focused primarily for daily driving and cross-country trips and stuff like that. I think we're gonna take a break from that and make the E30 more of I'll say a show car, but still drivable, because we drive all of our cars, and the E30 is not gonna be just sitting there either. So as I'm looking over this car, so I believe this paint is single stage, and I think we might be able to bring back a lot of this. Ideally, I don't want to have to repaint the whole car if we don't have to, but even if we do have the facilities for that now. You guys will see that in an upcoming video, but hopefully we're able to restore this paint. So I might do a whole separate section once we have everything stripped and really cleaned on trying to bring this paint back to life. We'll see how that goes. But one thing that we already purchased before the build even began, I think it's been about 8 months since we purchased it. We have some wheels. You guys just have to come back for a few videos down the road when we actually reveal those. But those wheels are 5-lug wheels, and as I mentioned before, we are gonna do a full 5-lug conversion all around. And in the front, we're also probably gonna go with the E46 rack and all of the stuff that most E30s builds have. The 5-lug conversion that we have converts the rear to E46 brakes as well. So that's gonna work out perfect. So the braking system should be pretty spot on. Only thing that we still really need to figure out as far as braking is concerned is the brake booster setup. So there are a few options for that as well. I'm thinking about going with something a little bit newer that most people don't do. So a lot of people either do a booster delete. I know Chase Bays makes a whole booster delete kit. A lot of other people go with, I believe, the old 944 boosters or a Clio booster. And other people also go with the hydro brake setup. I think that's off of the E32s. And that brings a whole brake assembly all the way to the front of the engine bay. But it looks really ugly. So I don't know if we're going to go that route. And I'm thinking about doing something a little bit newer. A lot of people have been starting to talk about it on the forums. All the newer EV cars or hybrid cars, their boosters are a lot smaller, and they just have an electric booster for the most part. So we're going to see if I can do some more research on that and if we can figure out a way to install that in here. Of course, we're going to have it slammed, not slammed, but sporty slammed, where you can still drive it. We're all about form. No, we're all about function, but we like the form too, so we're going to make it look good. But I'm going to end this video here so we can go ahead and start on the next one where we really start the whole build process. So make sure you subscribe to keep up with the build. Make sure you also turn on that bell notification. That way you get notified every time we upload. I know a lot of people have commented on my videos saying that I don't upload for months. But if you guys look back, I upload at least once a week, and all of that's about to go even more hopefully with this whole build once we get it rolling. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.